And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Tigers!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
The New Orleans Saints select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers? Yeah.
It's playoff. Keep going, Brace.
The playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Shooting and the deaths, and Israel as they're going through that turmoil and that war that they have going on over there. But we're going to jump right on in. Lord, just thank you for everything you bless us with, and just please don't let us take for granted all of our blessings that we have every day, Lord. And just please be with the families in Jonesboro as they're still recovering and grieving, Lord, and just help them, kind of give them some peace and understanding of the situation, and let someone be touched by you, Lord, through this situation, and just is the best way it can. Let it be beneficial in your name, Lord. And just please be with the people in Israel as they're fighting. It's your, it's Christians' homeland, Lord. And just please be with these people that are going through this terrible tragedy over there with all these heinous things happening. And thoughts and prayers are with those people. And hopefully this will cease sooner rather than later in your name, Lord. And just please put a hedge of protection over them and put the fear on the people that are attacking your country, Lord. And also just please be with Norkay and her family as she's starting this long battle with this very, very rare type of cancer, Lord. And just give her strength and courage and resiliency, as well as her parents and her brother and sister, Lord, as just help give them understanding of the situation and what's going on, and that just put your hand and a hedge of protection over them, but also just help them understand why, and that this is in your plan, Lord. And just please be with all these people affected in all these situations, Lord. And please just let us shine a light for you and continue in living for your name. And just thank you for this wonderful sport and this opportunity that we have to enjoy this sport. And just please let's not take it for granted, and serve in your name and shine a light for you. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, guys. So first, I want to thank our sponsors, Big Reed BBQ, Automotive Detailing Solutions, This Little Piggy Barbecue Food Truck, Mimi's Children's Boutique, and Doug Demona Farm and Feed, one of our new sponsors. And typically we have a title sponsor for these episodes, but for this episode, I want to dedicate it to Norkay Meredith, and just elaborate just a little bit in this segment what she's going through. She's a 5-year-old girl with a type of cancer that only 30, I believe, right at 30 children in the world have ever been diagnosed with. And this family is fairly close to me, and I go to church with them, and really good people. And she's 5, going through this extremely rare and unknown cancer. And just if you have a chance to, put her on your prayer list wherever you are, thoughts and prayers. And then I'm going to talk to Clay about possibly they're doing a bone marrow drive, because that's one of the ways to treat this type of cancer that they know of now is for bone marrow transplants. And they're going to do a bone marrow drive to try to find matches for her, which it's pretty hard to do, typically. So I'm going to talk to Clay about getting her graphic put up on the Dirty Boot Sports website, and you can sign up for the bone marrow drive on there. They'll ship you a kit to your house, and that kit, and then you just, it has the instructions, and you ship it back. They pay for all the shipping and everything, and then you're in the database, and they can see if you're a match for her for a bone marrow transplant. And it's something that's very important for her treatment. So I'll see if I can get Clay to share that on the website. If you're interested in that, it'll have instructions on what to do to follow through with that. But thank you all for everybody continuing for thoughts and prayers for her. And we're going to jump right on into our waiver segment. And also, later on this week, we'll have our start, sit, sleeper graphic in our pod coming at the end of the week. And we're not really going to talk about injuries on this pod. There's a couple that I will elaborate on as I get to players that are relevant to those. But I'm going to cover the injuries and the news later on in the week because we just don't have a ton of updates at this time. So we're going to jump right on into our quarterbacks for our waiver wire targets for week 7. And honestly, this is still the Jared Goff column. I really don't know what this guy has to do to be owned in more than 60% of leagues. It is really baffling, but he's the number 5 quarterback in fantasy football so far. He's got back-to-back 30-plus games, and it's just really crazy to me that he's still available. He's got a tough matchup coming up against Baltimore, but honestly, as well as he's played with his weapons, and the defense that he has on the other side of the ball, getting him the ball more often and turning the ball over more, it's hard to say that Jared Goff is not a matchup-proof player right now because we've seen even the best defenses in the league not be that great at times. Like there's been no stud defense that has not been beat yet this year. And Baltimore's definitely not one of those. They are, I believe, like number 6 or hang on and I'll tell y'all for sure. Yeah, Baltimore is 3rd against quarterbacks in fantasy right now, which is, is pretty good. But with Jared Goff's weapons, it's hard to believe that he still can't have a very productive week and he can be more beneficial for you than somebody with a worse matchup or somebody that hadn't been doing well. Or if your quarterback's on a bye and he's the guy, if he's sitting on the waiver wire, he's going to be your best bet. That's just me. Next guy, Matthew Stafford for the Rams. Owned in 56% of leagues. This week he's going up against Pittsburgh at home. Didn't have a great fantasy production week, but he didn't really let you down either. They just didn't have to throw the ball a lot to win against Arizona. But this week, they're getting the 21st ranked defense against quarterbacks in Pittsburgh, averaging giving up at least 20 points a game this year so far. And then if you don't know, Kyron Williams, the number 1 running back for the Rams, has a pretty severe low ankle sprain he's already been ruled out for this week. So they've got some guys that are going to be out there that have like 1 or 2 carries, or I think one guy's got like 4 carries all year, and that's it. So because Ronnie Rivers, their backup, is out with a knee injury, and they literally signed like 2 other guys. They signed Darrell Henderson, and then they signed Myles Gaskin. So they got 2 guys, and they might get carries, but it's like you got Matthew Stafford, you got Puka Nacua, you got Tutu Atwell, you got Cooper Kupp, you got Tyler Higbee. Why would you lean on a bunch of guys that don't have hardly any carries this year and don't know the offense that well versus throwing the ball more and getting the ball into your playmakers' hands? I think this is a big week for Matthew Stafford and them throwing the ball. I like Stafford a lot this week. 3rd for me is going to be Jordan Love for Green Bay. He's owned in 56.3% of leagues, coming off a bye. He's going up against Denver. Hello, flashing red lights. The team you start pretty much all offensive players against. But he's coming off a bye, so he should be fresh. Denver's 31st ranked defense against the quarterback, as we all know they're the bottom barrel. But Jordan Love's coming back from a tough outing against Las Vegas where he pretty much had a dud. And they should have a solid game plan, plenty of time to prepare against Denver, who's pretty much rebuilding their defense in the middle of the season, cutting veteran guys left and right. And Denver's already averaging giving up 28 points a game to quarterbacks. I think this is a great game for Jordan Love to get back on track and his offensive players. Everybody should be fairly healthy. I think you can do worse than picking up Jordan Love off the waiver and starting him this week. And that's pretty much going to wrap up our quarterbacks. I would think out of those 3, one of them's probably going to be available in your league. If not, then you could always go with one of the guys we've talked about in the past, like Josh Dobbs or somebody like that. But if it was me, I'd try to find one of these three guys right there and start them. Now we're going to move on to our running backs, which is tough sledding last week, tough sledding again this week, although I do think there's a couple guys this week that are less owned that are going to be a little bit more productive than the guys that we had on here last week. But number one for me has got to be Kareem Hunt this week. Seeing his workload increase and his snap count increase last week and Ford's decrease some. He's only owned in 26% of leagues, but this week he's going to be at Indianapolis. And it's been a slower process than I thought. I really thought Kareem Hunt would come in and kind of start to take over a little bit quicker, but he's not taken over yet. But we're seeing him be a little bit more productive and involved than Jerome Ford. Now, Jerome Ford had a decent week this past week, don't get me wrong, but Kareem Hunt just seems more comfortable and more – it just seems like they're using him more like a traditional running back. Or he just seems to be getting the more important carries, the more important touches. And they're getting the 21st ranked defense against running backs this week that Indianapolis has given up at least around 23.7 points a game to running backs. And they've given up 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games to running backs. And Hunt was the one that got the goal line touchdown this past week. I think he's a good chance to get another touchdown this week at Indianapolis. Not to mention they've been mixing him in the passing game more than they have been Jerome Ford. So I think Hunt's a solid fill-in and somebody you want to pick up that could really be beneficial for you in the future, especially with all these injuries at running back we've had. Then we got Craig Reynolds at number 2, owned at 6.6% of leagues for Detroit, going up against at Baltimore. You're probably like, why you got Craig Reynolds on here? Well, which, like I said, I'm not talking about injuries unless they're pertaining to this column, but David Montgomery goes down with a rib/cartilage injury this past weekend, has already been ruled out for this weekend, maybe even a couple more weeks. Also, we know Jahmyr Gibbs hasn't played the last 2 weeks from a hamstring injury. He does have a good shot to come back and play this week, but you know they're not going to throw a whole workload on Jahmyr Gibbs coming off a hamstring injury, and they didn't even want to throw a whole workload on him before whenever David Montgomery had went out before. So I like Craig Reynolds a lot. It's a tough matchup at Baltimore, but he's the only healthy and possibly the main goal line back that they have in one of the best offenses in the NFL. Even in a tough matchup, Craig Reynolds is going to be a better bet at an RB2 than anybody else you're going to find, or probably anybody on your bench right now. And it's pretty clear they don't trust Gibbs with a full bell cow role yet, especially with him coming off a hamstring injury. And we've seen Reynolds be successful in the past with a larger role in this offense. So Baltimore's also they're the 15th ranked defense against running backs, so middle of the pack, but they've been giving up an average of 19 points a game to running backs. So if it's going to be about a 70-30 Craig Reynolds show, I think it's a good chance that he might find the end zone and get you about a 15-point week. I like Craig Reynolds a lot this week, and maybe even next week if David Montgomery's out again. Next, going to be Roschon Johnson, who was out last week because he was still in concussion protocol in a great matchup that Dante Foreman started in and did really nothing with, did not take advantage at all. We've seen Justin Fields leave the game with a dislocated thumb. He's not going to be back. They're going to have a rookie quarterback in there starting. And if this is a big if Roschon Johnson clears concussion protocol and plays, which he should, if everything goes, we see most people in concussion protocol miss a week, and he should have a good chance to come back. And given that Foreman didn't do anything, Las Vegas, who they're playing at home this week, is 20th ranked defense against a running back, giving up an average of 23.5 points to running backs. And with Herbert on the IR, Justin Fields out, a rookie quarterback in there, they're probably going to lean more on the run and probably a lot of check downs to their best pass catching running back, which is Roschon Johnson, who's extremely explosive and efficient in the pass catching game. Give me all shares of Roschon Johnson you can get this week and probably for the next couple weeks, at least until Khalil Herbert comes back. So I like Roschon Johnson a lot. And then last but not least, which this is more for the future still and kind of an insurance policy pickup, but Jeff Wilson still has not come back from the IR. I didn't think he was coming back last week. He didn't. I'm not 100% sure he's still healthy, but with as good as Miami's running offense is, I mean, we've seen Salvon Ahmed come in and get 12 points out of nowhere when he was inactive the week before. If Jeff Wilson can get out there, who we've seen be successful in this offense before, even with Mostert healthy, I think he's a solid flex play at best. And then we all know that Mostert's not the moral of health himself. And honestly, the Mostert owners should be just happy that he's made it this far without having any injury yet. This week, it is a tough matchup against Philadelphia. I don't feel strongly about starting Wilson, even if he does get activated this week. But going forward, I like Wilson getting in there and getting some goal line carries, having a decent chance at a touchdown in the future. So keep Jeff Wilson on your radar. If not, pick him up, stash him on your bench, just in case he comes in, gets a little bit more involved than we think, or if Mostert goes down with an injury. Next, we're going to roll right on into our wide receiver options, which there's lots of options at this position, so I'm going to try to go through it a little bit quicker. But number one for me has got to be Curtis Samuel right now. He's owned at 28% of leagues. He's going up against the Giants this week at New York. But honestly, he's just starting to look like the favorite target of Sam Howell, which is crazy when you got Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dodson on the team. And but he's got touchdowns in the last two games, and he's been the most productive wide receiver for Washington in the last three. And now he's got the 21st ranked defense against wide receivers, giving up at least 38.4 points a game to wide receivers. And they've given up 6 touchdowns to wide receivers over the last 4 games. So give me some shares of Curtis Samuel as a bye week fill-in at flex, or even maybe if you're really desperate at wide receiver too, because there's the way he's getting the ball and especially being targeted in the red zone, and he even gets some rushes. So I like Curtis Samuel a lot, and maybe even going forward if Sam Howell and Curtis Samuel have some good chemistry going. Number 2 for me is going to be Josh Palmer, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, Josh Palmer, dude's barely getting 10 points a game. I know, trust me. But he's getting the targets. He's getting the play. He's getting the snap count. He's not breaking the mold by any means with his production, but he's getting the opportunity, all right? And it was a tough matchup last week against Dallas. Yeah, he only got you 10 points, but he had 7 targets, 4 for 60, good yard per catch average. He's still got a tougher matchup this week at Kansas City, but I think that Chargers are going to have to throw and be more productive to beat Kansas City than they were trying to stay in the game against Dallas. And also that Kansas City's defense gave up big wide receiver games to Minnesota and the Jets just 2 and 3 weeks ago. So I think this is more of a bounce-back situation, a bounce-back game for Josh Palmer this week. Third for me is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson from the New York Jets. I know, crazy. New York Jets wide receiver being productive. Yeah, but also, Daniel Jones was out. Tyrod Taylor was in. And Taylor seemed to lock in on Wan'Dale Robinson. When Robinson ended up getting really 8 targets, caught 8 passes for 62 yards this past week. And he started to seem to get a good rapport with Daniel Jones, and Wan'Dale Robinson's snap count and play production has went up every week since he came back from his injury. I don't see any reason why that doesn't change. Now, this week, he gets Washington defense that is 30th ranked against wide receiver in the league, giving up an average of 47.8 points a game to wide receivers. So really, regardless of who they have under center in New York, I think Wan'Dale Robinson's a good chance to have another solid week, maybe another like 8 for 62 week, and possibly a decent chance to fall into the end zone, where Washington has given up 5 touchdowns to wide receivers in the last 3 weeks. So sign me up for some Wan'Dale Robinson, who could easily be ahead of either one of the other 2 on this list. I'd like it a lot better if he had a more stable quarterback situation. But either way, I think he's a solid flex play, if not you desperate wide receiver 2 on bye weeks. Fourth for me is going to be Josh Downs, who has a lot of opportunity coming his way, I think, with Gardner Minshew possibly being the quarterback for the rest of the season. Downs is only owned in 32.7% of leagues. Did not really have the breakout game that we thought with Gardner Minshew being in for sure, the quarterback, like we thought. But he did catch a touchdown pass, and he had 8 targets. So don't lose faith in him yet. He's got a tough matchup this week against Cleveland, who's the number 1 pass defense in the league against wide receivers. But I still think he could be at least a flex play for the rest of the season, with Minshew probably being their quarterback for the rest of the year. I like Josh Downs a lot, and so does Gardner Minshew. So he's definitely somebody you should look at picking up and maybe taking a flyer on at a flex this weekend. And then last but not least on this column at number 5, Jameson Williams for Detroit. Honestly, just look at the Detroit offense and tell me you don't want a part of that, much less they're a big play wide receiver like Jameson Williams. He's only owned in 34% of leagues. This week, a little bit of a tough matchup at Baltimore, but he's just a big play waiting to happen. And he doesn't have to have the volume completely right now, but he needs it to be consistent. But 3 targets last week on like 27% of plays and 2 catches for 53 yards and a touchdown. I mean, if his opportunity increases to even 50%, we're looking at a starter and a flex every week right now with Jameson Williams in this offense and Jared Goff at the helm. So he might not be somebody you pick. And not only that, he's never going to see the best coverage. That's always going to go to Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then they're always going to pay more attention to Sam Laporta, who's getting a lot of attention over the middle. And that's just going to open things up for a big play guy that's a speedster like Jameson Williams. So you might not play him right now, but pick him up, put him on your bench. If he starts getting more opportunity and more targets, he's somebody that could really break out for the second half and maybe carry your team as a flex or even a possibly wide receiver too, because the way their production is on this Detroit offense and their efficiency's going, they could possibly support 2 wide receivers and a tight end in the passing game. So especially with Gibbs not being involved as much as we thought he was going to be. So I like Jameson Williams. And then the last position that we're going to talk about is tight end, a.k.a. the craps of the fantasy football community, where, as I've been saying, you just roll the dice on one of these guys, cross your fingers, and hope you win. Well, I hadn't really been winning that much at this part here lately, but these guys have been pretty productive, at least the first 2 when they've given opportunity. They got some opportunity coming up. Number 1's got to be Jonnu Smith for me. For Atlanta, which is crazy because Kyle Pitts is on that team, but we got the backup number 2 tight end being the most productive for him the last 3 weeks. I don't know what else to say. I mean, he's had at least 10 points the last 3 weeks with at least 5 targets over those 3 games. And he's averaging at least 10 yards per catch of those the last 3 weeks. And he just seems to have found a consistent role in this offense, and Desmond Ridder seems to be comfortable getting him the ball. Now, we did see Kyle Pitts be a little bit more productive last week, and their play and snap count seems to be around 50-50. But honestly, if Jonnu Smith's getting you 10 points a game, I don't know anybody that wouldn't take almost a guaranteed 10 points at this point out of their tight end position. And he's only owned in 14.8% of leagues with bye weeks. I mean, pick up Jonnu Smith and roll the dice and see. They're at Tampa Bay, which is not a great matchup, but honestly, I mean, you could do worse for sure. Number 2 for me is going to be Luke Musgrave for Green Bay, owned in about 17.4% of leagues. We've seen him be productive in the past. He's coming off a bye, so a lot of people that might not have been happy with him or they were kind of streaming him before probably dropped him. Well, this week he's getting a matchup at Denver, and we know what we say about Denver. If you got an offensive player, you start him against Denver. Well, it just so happens that Denver's the 32nd ranked defense against tight end in the league. They're giving up an average of 17 points a game to tight ends, and they just gave up 7 targets. Luke Musgrave just had 7 targets, 6 catches for 34 yards against Las Vegas, in pretty much a dud for Jordan Love against Las Vegas right before their bye week. So this should be a great streaming opportunity for Luke Musgrave at Denver. Like him a lot. And then last but not least on this, kind of more of an unknown, a little bit deeper, but I'm starting to kind of come around to this guy, Michael Mayer for Las Vegas. Only owned in 1.5% of leagues, but he's going up at Chicago this week. But last week, he played the most snaps of the season so far since coming back from injury at the beginning of the year. 81% of the snaps for Michael Mayer last week. And with that increase in snap count, we seen that production come out in his catching, where he had 6 targets, 5 catches for 75 yards last week against a pretty tough wash. I'm sorry. Hang on. Who'd they play last week? My bad, guys. I've been rolling through and then I mess y'all up. But anyway, rolling last week had a pretty solid game against a pretty tough New England defense against the tight end. So give me some Michael Mayer. And also Jimmy G left the game with a back injury. And you probably think, well, that's probably not good news, is it? Yeah, but if they start rookie Aiden O'Connell at quarterback, who's a pretty proficient passer, we all know that the tight end is one of the is some of the rookies' best friend because they like to check the ball to him and they like to go over the middle to him. So yeah, give me some Michael Mayer, who's pretty good at running after the catch also because he's a really good athlete. Chicago's 25th ranked against tight end, and they just gave up 12 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown to Washington and Logan Thomas just a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, sign me up for some Michael Mayer. I like him at tight end to pick up and maybe somebody going forward. And then I'll give y'all just a couple streaming defenses. There's really several this week. These are just a couple that look like there could be decent matchups. That would be Las Vegas's defense at Chicago because, like I said, Justin Fields is out. They're starting a rookie that really I don't know much about, and nobody seems to think has any real experience in an NFL run offense except for what he's had since he's been on this team. And we all know, and then we see Las Vegas have a really good defensive day against New England and Mac Jones. So fire me up some Las Vegas defense with Max Crosby wreaking havoc on the Chicago offense. And then Tampa Bay at home against Atlanta. Tampa Bay's defense has been pretty solid this year so far, coming off a really tough game this past week and looking to maybe kind of bounce back a little bit against Atlanta, who's not the most efficient offense, that runs the ball a lot, shortens the game, and Desmond Ridder is still kind of green. He's gotten a little bit better over the last couple of weeks, but I think Tampa Bay's a solid streaming option. So, yeah, I think you could do worse than going for them. But that's going to wrap up our waiver wire episode, and we'll be coming back at you later on for Start Sit Sleepers. Please, thank you so much for all our listeners. Just remember to like, subscribe, download, give us some feedback on the podcast on your application of choice, and give us some ratings if you can. We appreciate everybody out there, and please keep Norkay, Israel, and Jonesboro in your prayers as they're still, going through all these situations that they're dealing with. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers. And thank you, everybody, for listening, and keep chasing that trophy.